this next in between that I'm going to do is on a very broad action. The character is starting off down here in a hunched over position, and then he's going up into this position here with a maniacal laugh. There's a laugh that's taking place. So first thing you need to know anytime you're doing in-betweening is what is the action of the character? What's the character doing? Why are they doing what they're doing? What's the purpose of it? What's their thought process? There are a lot of different things that need to be understood about it. So with this one here, I mean, this is sort of an odd type of in-between. This really is a breakdown drawing. It's my halfway on this laughing action. So the character is going to start down here. I have a stretch position and a squish position where the character is contracting and expanding excuse me, as he goes up, and then he'll end up in the high point with a laughing action as well. And so it's called a stagger for the laugh assignment. And in this timing chart that I've got over to the side here, I'm indicating that I'm starting out at drawing number 22 here, and I'm going through all the way to the drawing number 34, which is this key position here. My halfway position is 28, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 in-betweens here, with 28 being the halfway position or the breakdown position. So in this action, as the character goes up and back, I don't want him to go from a clenched fist position to his open hands nice and even. What I want him to do is I want him to be going up like this, shaking his hands, his fists, until he gets to the midway point, which his fists will be clenched as well. And then he's going to break open and open up. So it affects how the in-betweens are going to work throughout this whole thing. The path of action on the wrist can be a basic arcing action, but his hand will be in a fist position over here. So this is one of those situations where a halfway position, while it's indicated as a halfway on my timing chart, is not necessarily a halfway position for where my hands are going to be or what the expression of the hands are going to be. So you always have to sort of think it through. And like I said, this is an unfair in-between for an in-betweener not just be given this, because there's too many things that would be left up in the air. An assistant could take on this responsibility, but they would have to communicate with the animator. But that's, again, it's in my mind, that's putting a lot of responsibility onto the assistant animator, and you'd have to trust them quite a bit. And they would have to be to the position where, or to the point where they're almost ready to become a full-fledged animator, and you're just trying, the animator is trying to teach them these are the things that you need to understand when you're moving forward into your next position, becoming an animator as an assistant. And then also just sort of expressing the idea to the assistant that when you do become an animator, you don't leave stuff like this up to your in-betweener or your assistant, because it's just too much to ask of them. So this will be slightly different simply because it is more of a breakdown as opposed to a pure halfway in between like we just did. So we've got a number of different paths of actions that are taking place here. The primary action here is in the head, moving from this position up to this position here. So we've got the tip of the nose, we've got the top of the head and the top of the head, which is wrapping back and over to this position inside the character's head. So we'd have to plot out a path of action here in order to get the character to arc up properly and come back down. So this would be our path of action here. Let me just draw this. Well, I'll draw it hard on this one here, and then I'll switch to a different sheet of paper when I do my actual in-between. So this would be the path that the top of the head would follow. The nose would follow a different path here. It would arc out more like this, and of course come back to this position here. So it's going to have an overlapping arc of that nature there. And it's important to know that as well. So because this is our first start off position here, and if we took and drove a spike through the character's head, it would come down on an angle like this, and the same thing on this one over here. And we need to know this simply because this character is moving three-dimensionally up and back, and so the arc is in a three-dimensional arc. So the halfway position is not a mathematical halfway position, which would be roughly about here. The actual halfway position would be more up in this area here. Off of this fulcrum point would come up like this. So this portion here is being presented to the viewer more, and then this part here is arcing back and away, so it's going back in perspective. So with the rule of perspective, something that's closer to you is larger, something that's further away appears to be smaller. you have to apply that rule. So a simple way of illustrating that would be to put my one hand here, and as I take my other hand and put it right beside it, if I pull it towards the camera, you can begin to see that if I keep my wrists lined up, get my wrists on the bottom of the field there, you can see how all of a sudden my hand is getting bigger and bigger and bigger as it moves towards the camera. So this hand appears to be larger than this hand here, when in reality it's actually not. It's the same size. So we want things to diminish as they go back in perspective. So that means our spacing here would have to get smaller as it goes back as well. So this would be my 28 position right here. And on the nose, we'd have the same type of a scenario where the nose would probably come to about this position right here in its halfway. Now, that may not work out, you know, from the point of view of where's the cranial mass here and where would the nose be out here. It might not work. I might have to sort of make this arc here just a little bit more shallow like this in order for this to work properly, which means that the nose would be more around here. So therefore, if my cranial mass is in this position here, in the halfway position, roughly about that size, with the brow being somewhere around here, then the nose would arc out, which is about the right size there. Okay? So these are all things that you can play around with as well. There's also overlapping action where I might decide to put more of a drag on the nose and tilt the head down just a little bit more and take the brow down here further. And again, these are all issues that would have to be determined by the animator. As this is a breakdown drawing, they would have to figure that stuff out. So let's just go back here and let's just plot out where our halfway positions are for all these other in-betweens that are going to go in here. And I'll just reserve this as a guide for myself later on. My timing chart over here indicates where the halfway positions are. So 28 is this one here. Then halfway down is 26, which makes this 27. This would be 29 and 30. Okay, and then I've got another halfway position there, which is 25. And then I begin my slow in with two more in-betweens here and here. So this is 24, 23, and this is 22 down here. That's this drawing right here. So then the same thing on this side here, 29, 30, this would be 31, 32, 33 over here, and then my key position is 34 on the back side here, which is this drawing right here. Or sorry, this drawing here. Okay, so with that information now, I would go in, and once again, because this is a breakdown drawing, what I would tend to do is I would tend to draw the character fairly loose and rough like this. I block the character out first, getting a sense of the cranial mass here. I really don't need this underdrawing for right now, because now I've just put the head in the proper position there. So you can see how a straight in-between would not fit here, because if I'm going from this position straight back in a line right here, my head would actually be down here, which would create a very linear type of an action, but I want it to arc up and over. So then I've got to look at the attitude of the head, how it's tilted down, how it's tilted up here, where do I want it here. I'm going to cheat just a little bit and have it slightly tilted down in this one. Again, the nice thing about this character design is that eye line goes right wrapping around the head there, the cranial mass, to form the line for the hair. Roughly like that. And the sideburn would be there. Find the center line. And again, my character's face, you can see the brow in this one here, the line is nice and straight. So he's in that Mr. Burns, you know, brow type thing. And here he's got the maniacal type of a brow where it's more curved. So that's what I'm going to put on this one here. Let's curve this up a little bit more. Do the same thing on this side. And I can start to drop my eye in. And here's where I get to figure out where my nose is. So based on the angle of everything here, I'm going to put my nose out here. cheek here to find the lip there. And now I have to figure out what the expression on his face is going to be at this point. Get the nostril in the right place. And the teeth, I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teeth. So I'll start over here. Part of the chin here doesn't quite fit, like with the perspective that I'm sort of establishing on the character's head here. Almost feels like this line here should be going more like this, and that the lip really should be curled up over here more. And what I'll do is I'll pull this line in here a bit as well. Of course, the key here is to try and keep the character on model. After I've done my rough, I'll take a peek at it and assess what needs to be fixed up on as far as proportions go. Just erase down this line here. And then arcing the neck up and back here, that would be the path of action for that. So here's the ellipse here for that. This one's wide open here, so I want something partly halfway in between there. So that gives me a guide for where I can put my neck now. The character seems to be getting a little bit thick and long here. When I try and attach halfway in betweens and keep the volumes the same, it just seems like his head's not quite in the right spot. So I would probably come back and adjust it here to keep the character more on model. Yeah, I can see that this portion here isn't quite right. Okay, so this just gives me a general idea now of the action and whether or not it's doing what I want it to do. So this isn't quite right. What I would do is I would probably adjust this down to about there. Would be an appropriate position for it. So what I can do is I can simply shift, just roll my paper up here and come back with a brand new fresh sheet of paper, and I can just lightly start to tighten the drawing up a little bit. Again, it's just a very, very light trace off. I can come back and start to tighten it up, and if I don't like certain parts, I can go back and erase them. So I like everything on this drawing except for the mouth. It just seems a little bit large. So keep the upper part the same. Just going to shift the teeth just a little bit. Like that. Keep this portion of the head. Now I want to go back and get it to match back into my proper halfway in between position. So take this drawing off here, find that halfway for the loop, there's neck, okay, so if his mouth was closed, that would be position for it. So now I want to open up the mouth. Maybe open it back this way a little bit more. And then pull this part here in. Yeah, that's better. Extend the side of the cheek up there a bit more. That's better. Yeah, I like that better. And that keeps the integrity of the character design. Okay. So now I need to go back and plot out where I'm doing with my arms. So my one arm is here, the other arm is here. So I'm going to go halfway in between, arcing across here because my elbow is going to move back in this position here. So the elbow will be roughly about there. Now because this one's on this angle and this one's on this angle, the halfway position will be roughly about here. And again, I don't want to scoop the arm, so I want to create a drag as it goes back across this way. So I probably favor just a little bit in this direction here to add more drag. The wrist, the cuff, and then down into the elbow there. Should put the back of the arm here, here, halfway in between that to get my shoulder to move back. Be right about there. And hunching the shoulder over like that. So that places the hand in that position there. So I want to keep the hand clenched, the fist clenched as it is here, just rotating it up in 3 dimensions. Bring it up that way, and the knuckle. The fingers there, palm of the hand, crease, crease, thumb on the side here. So it's going from here to here. And then with this hand here, it's coming from down here in this position up to this position here. So I'll put it right about there. That position. And once again, keep the fist clenched, but just rotate the hand a little bit. So I have knuckle, knuckle, little finger, knuckle. It's the pointing finger, middle finger, little finger, and then thumb. So arms going from here to here. And then I gotta line up the wrist, which is inside here, down the tube to the elbow joint right there. So it's gonna be foreshortened just a little bit down there into that. Here's my body line right here. There's the lapel line. There's the 2 points there and there. That's gonna be hidden in behind the hand. Therefore the body line goes up like that. Shoulder is here, the other shoulder is over here. So you gotta get those to link like that. Let's see. There's the jacket line right there. There's the other jacket line, so halfway in between there is right there. And the back of the jacket's there. So then the front line of the jacket is here, and the other one is right here, which is right there. So I'm going from here to here. My halfway in between is right in there. I'll put the tie line in there, which is right here. It's going to drop down. Actually, it's coming up. So then I've just got the shirt collar to the lapel, which has to match into that line there. Then the lapel line is going from here to here. The point is hidden in behind here to there. So they end up right about there. So there's the little cut for the lapel. And then my shoulder is going from here to here. It's my shoulder curve. Okay, so that's everything that I need. Just maybe need a cuff line for the shirt and jacket there. Okay, so that's my breakdown between that action. So now I can take a separate sheet of paper now, go over top of this one and clean it up. And that'll be my primary breakdown. And then I'll simply go back, on either side. I'm going to go from this drawing back to this drawing here, halfway in between those two. Get the head to rotate over. And then the hands will be fairly simple because they're all clenched fists going down. And then I'll come back and do from here up to here in a halfway position and getting the hands to begin to open up as he starts to laugh in the upper part and tilting his head back. Okay? So that's how to do a breakdown at a very, very broad action.